Welcome to BookTrib Live, a Merrill Moss Media production. Today we are so happy to chat with Anna Caltabiano, author of The Seventh Miss Hatfield. Thanks for joining us today, Anna.
Thanks for having me.
Anna is an up-and-coming YA author who has already published two widely acclaimed novels. Her newest book, The Seventh Miss Hatfield, is the first of a brand new trilogy. The book follows Cynthia, an 11-year-old American girl who isn't entirely happy with her life. When she befriends her mysterious neighbor, Miss Hatfield, things get pretty interesting. There's time travel, love, immortality, adventure, and so much more in this unique, enchanting, and poignant novel. Before we start asking our questions, I want to let our viewers know that we're giving away a copy of The Seventh Miss Hatfield, so stop by booktrib.com after the chat and enter to win. All right, so Anna, can you tell us a little more about The Seventh Miss Hatfield?
Yeah, so the Seventh Miss Hatfield, a girl, his visit to her mysterious neighbor, as you were saying, goes terribly wrong when she's turned immortal by water from the Fountain of Youth, and she ends up being sent on a mission to 1904 New York to steal a painting, but ends up kind of falling in love instead, even though she knows that she can't stay in that time or place. With the book, I really wanted to use time travel and the potential for immortality as vehicles and explore what it really means to lose your childhood, your family, your friends, basically everything that roots you to a particular time and place.
So, what was different about writing this book in comparison with your last book?
Yeah, I think the entire writing process was different with the Seventh Miss Hatfield. I think my first novel, All That Is Red, felt like it was theme driven. It was the plot line was simpler. It was it also took a month to write the first draft, while the Seventh Miss Hatfield took a year to write the first draft. I had a lot more time with the characters. I feel like it was a lot more plot driven too. It was fun. It was different.
Hmm. So, is the heroine of The Seventh Miss Hatfield anything like you, or does she have any similar traits?
I think I feel like I see a little bits of myself in each character, whether that's the protagonist or some like character that comes on for only 2 pages. Um, I think in some ways she's like me. She's a little bit stubborn. um, Sometimes she takes things too easily when she might fight instead. But in other ways, she's a lot not like me. So I think it was fun to write her because she was like me and because she wasn't like me.
Right, definitely. So we have a question here from Carly. She says, are you an avid reader of young adult yourself, and what other books are you currently reading?
I I read a lot of different stuff. So I'm not sure about avid, but I definitely try to keep up. I recently finished Paper Towns because I wanted to read it before the movie came out.
Yeah.
Hunger Games, of course. Just the
Mm.
I definitely read a lot of young adult to keep up with my friends. So when they start talking about books, I can go, yes, I have an opinion on this character. Um, it's definitely, let's see, what other books am I reading? I recently finished, the last book I read was nonfiction. It was called The New Jim Crow, Mass
Hmm.
Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness. That was completely different. I don't read as much nonfiction, even though I should. It's one of the things I'm working on. And I also recently finished rereading one of my favorite books on writing, and I highly recommend it. It's called Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. And it's one of those books
Hmm.
that I just love. It's on writing, it's on life. I feel like it's applicable whether you're a reader or a writer.
Great. So this kind of ties in with that question. This question's from Elizabeth. Do you have one favorite genre?
Oh, Elizabeth, that is a hard question. um,
Yeah.
I when I was younger, I read a lot of historical fiction. I definitely went through a phase where that was all I read, and one of my favorite authors was Anne Rinaldi, and she wrote these amazing, kind of lush period pieces. like about the American colonies, about girls growing up in difficult times. I just really like that. Young adult is always near and dear to my heart. I really identify with the young adult
Yeah.
crowd. I find that they talk about things that are important to me. Um, then again, I always like fantasy too because it's a nice escape from the real world. It's too hard to pick one.
Definitely. So, what made you decide to write your first book, All That Is Red?
So with all that is read, I it started out as a short story. I had never written a novel before. I had always told myself that I would write a novel somewhere down the line. But I never thought it was going to be when I was 14, and I had a summer to myself instead of going to summer camp. But I wanted to write it because I wanted to basically say that all teenagers feel horrible at some point, and that it's normal to want to make it go away, to feel numb, even if that means maybe losing the happy times as well. If you can just get rid of those bad feelings, everything would be okay. And I feel like it's normal to feel that way. So I just started thinking, what if there was a world like that where you didn't have to feel bad? You didn't have to feel those negative emotions. And yeah, you couldn't feel those positive emotions too. So I started creating a world through my writing where a main character had that choice, whether to feel everything or nothing at all. So it was just kind of a what if thought experiment that turned into a novel.
Wow, that's so great. So, Kate has a question. She wants you to tell us a little bit about your writing process.
Oh, so I generally start with an idea, maybe a character. With the Seventh Miss Hatfield, funny thing was it was right after, just really a few days after I finished All That Is Read. I was in a bookstore cafe and I saw a young man and he looked very overdressed for his age. He looked like a teenager, but he was wearing a dark suit and button down shirt, and he looked like he was waiting for someone. And I sat there for an hour kind of watching him out of the corner of my eye. And turns out he was meeting an older gentleman. It didn't really look like a father or a mentor. It looked too formal to be a parent, but it didn't really look like a business meeting or a job interview. So I just started thinking, what if he wasn't from this time period? What he looks like he's from another century or maybe earlier this century, and started toying around with that idea. So I tend to look around and start making up stories. I'll write them on these bright pink post-its on my desk. I'm actually at my desk right now. And they're just complete with doodles and little things that'll these are doodles, but little things that'll say, remember to kill Kevin, and Kevin would be a character, not an actual person. So it would be a little bit suspicious if someone came to my desk out of nowhere. But I'll take these ideas and I'll start outlining a story in a notebook. And I am one of those people who likes to outline. I think authors are either outliners or not, but I'll outline maybe 3 chapters ahead, and I'll write those 3 chapters and end up going down a completely different path, and then I'll tweak my outline for the next 3 chapters. So I do kind of create a plan and then never follow it. And then just sit down, try to write the first draft, and then there's a lot of editing of going back and saying, this character changed hair color partway through. I need to fix that, or I need to add in new scenes, new characters. So it's definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you sound like you have an amazing imagination. That's definitely.
I had a fun time. I have a fun time doing what I love.
That's fantastic. So, what got you interested in writing fantasy?
I definitely didn't set out to write fantasy. I kind of stumbled into it. I just started. It's always with the what ifs and
Mm.
thinking, what if that story of Ponce de Leon finding the Fountain of Youth in Florida, what if that was true? And
Mm.
he set out to to find the secret of immortality, and he instead found Florida. What if he found both? So I just kind of stumbled into it. I think fantasy is a great way to explore issues in our real world that still pertain to us. We get to, by tweaking one little thing in the world, like introducing immortality and not having to die, you get to magnify something bigger, like fear of death or fear of growing up. And it definitely pertains to our real world. But it's a great way to magnify it, really examine it, and go deeper.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So there's a question here from Sandra. She says, how do you feel about all the vampires taking over the YA shelves lately?
I think as long as they're not all the same, I think it's good. If you have a vampire that sparkles, the next one should probably not sparkle. Have something interesting. I also kind of miss them being scary. So if you have a good vampire novel and they're scary, I would like to read it.
That's great. Well, okay. So there's a question here from Suzanne L. She asks, what TV shows are you crazy about right now?
So I started watching a lot this summer. I kind of got back into my TV zone. And it's great. TV is great because you get to consume a lot of stories kind of in one sitting, and it's a nice way to soak it up. So this summer I started watching Hannibal, and I am all caught up. Um, I actually a lot of like medically related shows. Grey's Anatomy I started, and I have been binge watching on Netflix. Scrubs I'm also watching. Um, the I'm going to Brown in a few weeks actually, and I got into
Congratulations.
thank you. I got into a 8-year medical program, so hence all these medical shows. So I'm just binge watching, and I know it's not the way it's gonna be, but it's just a lot of fun to watch these highly dramatized love triangles in hospitals.
Yeah. I agree with you on that one. So I heard that you wrote most of your first novel on an iPad, and some scenes you even wrote on your iPhone and texted to yourself. Is this your preferred way of writing? Why or why not?
So I know it's very strange, but I just find that I'm never around a laptop all the time. Like when I need one, it's not there. Um,
Mhm.
I'm from Silicon Valley, and it's kind of whatever works here. So
Mhm.
iPads, iPhones. The worst part is I'm I never have my phone on me. I'm one of those people. So I'll be at dinner with a friend and say, "Hey, I have a great idea. Can I just borrow your phone so I can text myself with one sentence that you might have said that I want to stick in my novel?" So my friends put up with me, and it's just whatever goes. Scraps of paper, iPhone text messages, sometimes Skyping yourself if you can't text yourself,
Right.
laptop, and then trying to stitch it all together into one coherent story.
Mhm. Great. So when you were younger, did you always want to be an author?
I definitely wanted to write, and I definitely wanted to write a novel at some point. I don't think it ever really crossed my mind that I'd become an author. It's still kind of like a pinch me moment right now when I see my book on shelves. I go, what is it doing there? What is my name doing there? Um, but it's something I kind of fell into. I was doing something that I loved, and I wanted to keep doing it. Short stories just got longer, novel length, and before I knew it, I was writing my next book.
Wow. So where do you go to write? Do you have a specific place you go if you need some peace and quiet, or do you
My
have
desk
writer's block?
my desk is definitely my favorite because it's very quiet. It's by a window. I get to daydream looking outside. Um, I also do like bringing my laptop to places that are slightly noisy, just because
Mhm.
I like taking inspiration from other people's dialogue around me, whether that's friends or strangers. I do find it hard to get a lot of work done, but it's good for inspiration, maybe not for getting a few chapters done. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm known to take my laptop where everyone else is. and then be antisocial in front of them, which is slightly a problem.
So, what's the hardest thing about writing novels for you personally?
I typically when I start a novel, I know what the ending is or what it should be. Um, Basically, what type of feeling I want to leave my reader with. And I'll start with the ending, and then I think, okay, how do I get there? What should be the logical starting point? So I'll have an ending, and then I'll make a beginning, and then I'll try to go chronologically from the beginning to the ending as if I'm reading my own story. So the middle is always the hardest. And I have a fear of not knowing where I'm going and saying, okay, I know where I ultimately want to end up, but will I actually get there at this point? When you're writing a book and you go, well, at the very end, my characters need to end up in New York, but right now they're on the wrong continent. How are they going to get there? It's a problem. And it could be like an emotional storyline, and your characters are still strangers, but they have to fall in love at the end. So there are all different obstacles, but it's always one step at a time, one page at a time, and getting to know your characters as they get to know each other.
Hmm. So I know you have a big fan base. Has a fan ever said anything to you that has really made you think or moved you?
Definitely. The first thing that comes to mind is with my first book. Well, first it was a shock that anyone was reading it. And then one of the reviews, I think it was on Goodreads, it was one of the first reviews I got. It was a woman who said that she had struggled with self-harm when she was younger and that she wished that she had a book like this to show her when she was a teenager that she wasn't alone. And that just, it made everything worth it. And I still remember it was one of the best reviews I've ever gotten because it showed me that my writing somehow, in some way, meant something to someone else. And that was just a wonderful moment. And since then, I couldn't stop writing.
Wow, that's amazing. There's another question here from Elizabeth. She would like to know, what is your best advice for hopeful YA writers?
I think, oh gosh, the number one thing, and I think it's a very hard thing even for me. I just finished writing the draft of my fourth book total a few weeks ago, and it's amazing to think that it's 4 books down the line, but still, the actual writing is still hard for me. It's so easy to come up with an idea, a cast of characters, but then sitting down and actually starting to write, that's always the hard part. Or you'll get 10 pages down and you go, oh my God, to make it a novel, I have so many pages left. Or you're on 10,000 words and you know a novel has to be, maybe you're shooting for 80,000 and you go, that is so much more than what I have. So it looks looming, but if you sit down every day, whether you do it for 10 minutes at a time or hours, if you just do a little bit of it every day, a few pages even, you'll get there. And even at the end of the day, you look at your work and you go, that was horrible. That's never going to see the light of day. At least you know that that wasn't the way your characters are supposed to go, or that wasn't the way the story was supposed to go. And the next morning you can get up and try something else. So it's never a waste of time.
Definitely. So Susan has another question. Would you ever want one of your books turned into a TV show or a movie?
Definitely. I think that would be a dream come true. I think television shows, movies, they're a different medium from writing a novel, especially.
Mhm.
So it would just be really interesting for me to see my characters on a screen come to life and kind of
Mhm.
see how other people envision them. And they could look different, they could sound different, they could be completely different from what I imagined. But with the novel, I think it's always a partnership between the reader and the writer. So
Mhm.
me as an author, I bring in my views, but the reader has to read the novel and interpret that, and they kind of bring their own experiences, their own viewpoint into it. So it'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see how that translates to a screen.
So have you ever, like relating to this question, have you ever like casted any of your books in your head, or like have you ever chosen a certain actor that you feel like would embody a character perfectly?
I just have one, and I have no idea how this came up. I might have been watching too many movies one night, but Miss Hatfield I always imagined as kind of a Anna Nicole Smith kind of person.
Mm.
Yeah, for some really strange reason, I might have been watching one of her movies when I thought that character up.
That's so interesting. Wow. Um, all right, so there's another question here from, sorry, Suzanne L. Are you planning on writing while attending school?
Definitely. I think I'm just really excited to start meeting all these new people in new environment, a new set of characters for my story. And
Yeah.
hopefully they'll put up with me kind of jotting down notes if they say something interesting. But I think going to school and taking just far-fetched random courses and whatever I find interesting, meeting new
Mhm.
people, it'll only inform my writing. And definitely the same thing with, since it's an 8-year medical program, med school, same thing. Medicine is about people, writing is about people. I'll get to
Mhm.
see a lot of different people in a lot of different situations, and what better place to learn about people than school?
Definitely. So, what do you do when you're not writing? Do you have any other hobbies?
I think of myself as a pretty regular teenager. I definitely a lot of hanging out with friends and seeing what they're up to. I play the guitar horribly, so no one ever hears me play. I also play a bit of tennis, non-competitively, also not well. Just a lot of having fun, goofing off.
Nice. So I know you have a big following on Twitter and other social media. What are the pros and cons of that?
I think it's always interesting to put something out there, whether it's a article I wrote for a website or a magazine, and have just instant reaction to it as soon as it goes up. You see that, well, one, you see that people are reading it, so it can motivate you.
Mhm.
And then you get feedback, whether it's books or articles saying, I love this part or I love this character because of X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
But you also get, I really hated this character, or I didn't agree with this plot point, or it didn't sit well with me. But I find that both, it's one, it's really interesting to see how people react to your work and your writing, but it also, I think, informs your writing, whether you do it consciously or not. When you read people, read what they're saying about your work, you kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And when you're writing something similar or your next work, and you think, oh, there was that person in Wales who thought this about this character, I wonder if I can make them think in a different way if I did this with my character, or oh, people really like this, but and I had fun doing that with one character, but I want something different. I want them to feel something different. Let me try something else.
Mhm. So Sandra wants to know, do you think adults would love your books as well?
What was really interesting with my first book was that, well, I wrote it for people like me, so I wrote it for 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, but I found that the readership was people my age, a little bit older, kind of teens and a little bit older, and then this whole other demographic that was older than them. And I was wondering if it was their parents maybe reading books and trying to understand them. So that was also really interesting. And the Seventh Miss Hatfield in the UK is actually marketed as adult fantasy. So I don't feel like I'm credible enough to write adult fiction, but I stumbled into that too.
Mm. So when you were writing this book, did you have any specific audience in mind, or did you just write what you wanted to and it ended up leaning more towards YA?
I tend to write what I want to write. Um,
Mm.
just growing up, I tried to take note of what interests me, what I find important, and then write novels about that and characters dealing with things that I deal with or that I've seen or that I've heard about. I think in general with writing, you have to write what interests you because if you're not
Right.
interested, no one will be.
That's true. Very true. So we're going to try something new today as we close out our chat. I'm going to ask Anna a series of rapid-fire questions, and she can choose either A or B, and if you want to elaborate, feel free to, please. All right. Ready?
I'm excited, yeah.
Okay. So which mystical creature is your favorite, unicorns or mermaids?
Mermaids. You can talk to them. Unless like unicorns can speak English, then it's a toss up.
Which Hogwarts house would you be in? Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, or Ravenclaw?
For some reason I'm thinking Ravenclaw. I'm not sure, maybe Hufflepuff will like take me, but we need the sorting hat.
Definitely. If you could have magic powers, would you prefer invisibility or mind reading?
Mind reading, but I hope I could turn it off so I'm not driven crazy. I don't want like a Edward Cullen situation.
Good point. Would you rather be locked in a tower or a dungeon?
Tower. Nicer view.
hmm Typing or writing by hand?
Typing. I can't write by hand quick enough.
Do
Also,
you
your hand.
prefer writing? True. Do you prefer writing in silence or with noise or music in the background?
Big chunks of writing with silence. I start with music and then turn it off.
Do you prefer writing or reading?
Reading. It goes quicker and your mind can take a break and enjoy itself.
Which movie genre do you prefer, romance or horror?
Romance, just because I can watch it alone. Horror, I can't watch alone.
Mm. Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram?
Twitter, because I'm not good at taking photos.
And last one, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person. My friends know me as the one who gets sleepy, and I start yawning at 9.
Awesome. Well, I think it's time to wrap things up. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you. I had so much fun.
Me too. And viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to head to booktrib.com and enter to win a copy of Anna Caltabiano's book, The Seventh Miss Hatfield. All right. Bye, Anna.
Thank you.